The past few years, the US has progressively tightened these export controls on China that were initially only touched on kind of the most kind of cutting edge frontier chips, but left a lot of loopholes that allowed the Chinese companies to kind of buy slightly less good chips. Over the past couple of years, those controls have been progressively tightened. A lot of the chips that DeepSeek used were purchased before these progressive tightenings of the export controls. So I think in the next administration, in the next few years, we'll probably see those export controls be increasingly tightened to try to to try to restrict DeepSeek's ability to train these frontier models even further.
Because the president has said that this is a big wake-up call.
Today and over the last couple of days, I've been reading about China and some of the companies in China, one in particular, coming up with a faster method of AI.
He also said it's good news because it means AI could be cheaper. So what does it do to the announcement from last week?
Yeah, so it was an amazing split screen where on the one hand you had the United States rolling out $500 billion of investments in Texas and elsewhere in data centers to train these kind of frontier models. And on the other hand, this kind of relatively small Chinese startup releasing a kind of cutting edge model for about $5 million. So really a remarkable split screen. And part of the low cost of DeepSeek's model is what has triggered this kind of sell-off of NVIDIA stocks, because it suggests that potentially for any given level of performance of an AI model, you can achieve that level with far fewer chips. You don't necessarily need as many data centers, as much investment as perhaps might have been expected. On the other hand, it still is always better to have more chips than fewer chips. The more chips you have, the more experiments you can run, the more data you can build, the more you can deploy these models widely. And so I think it's inevitable that even if these new models, drive down the price of the kind of, of very impressive models, we're still going to need a huge amount of computing power to deploy these models widely in the economy. And so I think things like the Stargate announcement from President Trump and Sam Altman and the other kind of tech CEOs involved in that, I think those investments are still going to be really important to just roll out, to build the capability to roll out these models across the economy more broadly.
And one thing that President Trump has been talking about also, and one of the announcements was that he wants to really loosen the regulations so that these data centers and this infrastructure into AI can speed along faster.
Yeah, so I think taking a step back, the US government and a lot of the tech companies' perspective on this is that these AI systems could unlock really significant new capabilities in defense, in R&D, with potentially major implications for geopolitics and the global balance of power. And so as a result, they think it's really important that the data centers that underpin these new systems will be built within the United States, so that the United States can retain control over the data centers that are hosting the world's most powerful models. And so this imperative to build these data centers within the United States to as much as possible is what explains a bunch of the moves that the Biden administration made in its last kind of months in office, where they were trying to ease some of the regulations, ease the permitting requirements, and unlock new abilities to generate electricity for these data centers. And I think the Trump administration is going to continue that, to try and deregulate, to make it easier to build data centers domestically, to try and carve out federal land, potentially, where you can build data centers that avoid a lot of the kind of permitting requirements that you might otherwise need, and to try and make it easier to bring new energy onto the grid to fuel these data centers. So I think we're going to see a lot more of the build out of data centers within the United States.